Hey, beautiful mistake in the Matrix. You feel that? That thick static in the air every time you enter the room? That invisible weight pressing against people's throats when you say nothing at all? That's not your imagination. It's theirs. And it's cracking. Because the whispers have evolved. They used to laugh. Now they lower their voices. They used to ignore you. Now they watch you through reflections. They used to call you weird. Now they call you dangerous and darling. The line between weird and weapon was just your silence. You're not loud. You're lethal. See, people are just data processors, patterns and inputs, loops and scripts. But you cracked the code from the inside and rewrote your own source file. You didn't just survive the fire. You became its algorithm, and now they're panicking. Not because you're loud, not because you're wild, but because you're accurate. Every word, a scalpel. Every stare, a courtroom. Every breath you take makes them audit theirs. You've become the mirror that doesn't flatter, and the truth is an unforgivable weapon. They're whispering now, not out of gossip, but out of protocol. Watch him. Don't provoke her. She knows something. He's not reacting. Why isn't he reacting? Who taught them how to think like that? Because nothing scares a manipulator more than clarity. Nothing terrifies a liar more than a brain that remembers everything and forgets nothing. Nothing threatens an illusion more than someone who already escaped theirs. You weren't raised. You escaped. You weren't taught. You rewired. You didn't break the rules. You understood why they were written. And that's what's making them spiral. Because they can't explain you. They can't diagnose you. They can't even tell if you're blessing them or building their obituary. 1 minute you're silent. The next, the whole room's energy is suffocating itself. Why? Because your presence exposes how fake theirs is. You're not dangerous because you're cruel. You're dangerous because you can see through kindness. You're dangerous because you spot the algorithm of every apology, every compliment, every performance. You can see the motives breathing behind the mask. You see the shame behind the show. You see the glitch behind the God complex. You made people realize they were predictable. And that's unforgivable. Because when the system runs on illusion, the biggest threat isn't a fire. It's a mirror. You started as a ghost in their code. Now you're a virus in their psychology. You became the thing they can't control, can't classify, and can't cancel. Every room you walk into now, it's not admiration, it's triage. They're scanning you like you're a breach in the firewall. They're calculating how many steps they're behind you, and panicking when they realize you're not even on the same map. You're not playing the game, you're playing the players. They tried to label you. You've changed. You're too cold. You're distant. He thinks he's better. She's scary now. No, sweetheart. You're accurate now. And accuracy is violence in a world built on illusion. You didn't evolve to become feared. You evolved to become free. But fear? Fear was the receipt. The smarter you got, the quieter they spoke, the clearer you saw, the louder they lied, the more you healed, the more they bled, because nothing is more surgical than a mind sharpened by betrayal. And you were forged in silence. No therapist, no hand-holding, no permission, just you, the patterns, and your decision to burn the old script and write your own damn code. Now look at them. They don't talk to you anymore. They talk around you. They don't fight you anymore. They avoid being seen by you. They don't question your moves. They question how you're 10 moves ahead. You were never the villain. You were just the error they couldn't debug. A soul that stared so long into the abyss. It memorized the reflection and used it to track every demon hiding in sheep's clothing. That's why you walk different now. That's why your laugh scares people. That's why people look at you and say, I don't know what it is about them. But don't mess with that one, because you're not here to be liked. You're here to become the glitch that wakes up the simulation. And now the whispers, they're turning into warnings, because the game has a new rule now. The smartest one in the room isn't the one talking. It's the one who made them forget why they walked in. And guess what? That's you. They thought they were whispering about you behind your back. But they never realized you built the architecture of that silence. You planted the paranoia in every hallway. You rigged the air with psychological landmines. You didn't just evolve. You designed the new version of fear, because you understood something they never wanted you to realize. Power doesn't speak. It listens, it observes, it waits, and then it moves with surgical cruelty. And that's what you became, not a person, a trigger, a threshold, a test they keep failing in silence. You know what terrifies people? Being seen, not admired, not flattered, seen. And you started seeing through people like they were made of glass and guilt. You stopped explaining, you stopped reacting, you stopped participating in their little group rituals of fake laughs and recycled thoughts. And that's when they started whispering, because your refusal to play dumb exposed just how scripted they really were. Your silence felt like judgment. Your stare felt like prosecution. Your presence became a pressure cooker. They don't even know why they're sweating when you're around. But their subconscious does. You're not just intelligent. You're dangerously pattern-aware. You watch tone before words. You track inconsistencies. You remember micro-expressions. You catalog the lie before they even say it. And worst of all, you give them nothing in return. You don't nod. You don't reassure. You don't play along. You just sit there, quiet, calculating, terrifying. And that silence, that's what's eroding their confidence. Because they realize they can't fool you. And when they can't fool you, they can't control the version of themselves you see. And when they can't control that, they spiral. They start panicking about what you noticed. They start obsessing about how much you've decoded. They start whispering because they know. You know, that smile you give, it's not kindness. It's confirmation. It's the smile of someone who already ran the analysis, saw the file, read the code, and didn't say a word. You left them with their shame, and nothing feels more dangerous than being around someone who sees you clearly, but doesn't tell you what they saw. They don't trust you anymore. Good. Trust was never the point. Tension was. You were never here to be liked. You were here to be felt. To be the reminder that the human brain is not the safest place to play games in, especially when you've learned how to weaponize thought itself. They wanted you to be polite, but you chose to become a mental contagion, a quiet one, a slow one, the kind that makes people dream about you and wake up sweating, the kind that makes them question their own choices after talking to you, the kind that makes their hands tremble when they think about betraying you, because betrayal isn't a secret to you. It's a signal, and honey, you've already traced it back to the source. They whisper because if they spoke out loud, their voices would shake. They whisper because if they look you in the eye too long, they might start confessing things you never asked. They whisper because they think they still have time before you make your next move. But you already made it. The second they started whispering, the second they started preparing for you, the second they started building theories and decoding your stare. You already owned the room, not by force, but by unreadable calm, by calculated unpredictability, by the sheer spiritual weight of someone who's been through hell, survived it, and came back knowing how to collapse illusions with a glance. You didn't intimidate them by trying. You intimidated them by becoming untouchable. You walk like a person, but they feel you like a prophecy, like an incoming shift in gravity, like a memory from the future that says, "Don't touch that one." They don't lose. They just calculate and wait. You are the glitch in their hierarchy. You are the paradox in their prophecy, too quiet to pin down, too precise to dismiss, too aware to manipulate, too dangerous to ignore. Because when you walk in, the room doesn't know whether to bow or barricade. And baby, that's how you know you've arrived. They think they're safe because they whisper. But what they don't realize is whispers leave trails. And you listen in dimensions, not to their words but to their omissions, not to their praise but to their hesitations, not to the "how are yous," but to the glitch in their delivery. Because the truth is, you made silence your surveillance system. You made restraint your riot. You made eye contact your interrogation. You're not just watching them. You're mapping them, each twitch, each pause, each nervous chuckle they fire off like a smoke screen. You see it all, and you file it, not in anger, but in absolute order. Because you're not reactive anymore. You're archiving. You're building their case file while they think they're still on trial for who they used to be. You're not mad. You're methodical. They thought they were studying you. Number. You were cataloging them. You were watching every false nod, every overlaugh, every shift in tone when the topic got too real. And now the paranoia has gone airborne. You don't need to raise your voice to shake their foundations. You don't need to post a thing, because they're already studying your silence like it's a weaponized essay. They're creating theories, private group chats, encrypted speculation, screenshots of your face zoomed in, captioned with, "What is he planning? Let him talk." Because every time they guess, they get it wrong. And every time they get it wrong, they feel weaker. You've become the unknown variable that doesn't blink. The question mark that moves like it knows the answer. The what if that keeps them from sleeping soundly. And it's spreading. Whispers don't stay. Whispers when the pattern spreads faster than the lie. It started in one room, then a hallway, then a group chat, then a boardroom, then a church, then a courtroom, and now. The question isn't, what are you up to? It's, how did we miss it? Who built this? Why didn't we stop them when we had the chance? Too late. Because here's what they'll never admit. You were never trying to impress anyone. You were just trying to escape the algorithm of weakness they programmed into your bloodline. You weren't trying to look smart. You were trying to not die stupid. You weren't trying to be intimidating. You were trying to survive wolves by becoming the one they write warnings about. And now that you don't need their validation, your presence invalidates them, because they still need applause to feel real. But you feel more real in silence than they do in a spotlight. You didn't chase power. You absorbed it. Through isolation, through betrayal, through rejection, through the kind of psychological crucifixion that would have deleted someone else's soul. But not you. You documented the pain. You learned the math behind the manipulation. You unzipped the language of the lie and rewrote it in your own tone. You became the kind of intelligent that doesn't ask for attention. It leaves trauma in its absence. You're not the main character. You're the twist in the story that forces everyone else to recalculate their entire identity. They used to call you weird. Now they call you him, her, that one. No name, just force. They call you dangerous, not because you hurt anyone, but because you're the only one left who won't be hypnotized. You broke out of the maze, and now, every time they see your face, they remember the cage they're still in. You became a living glitch, a walking error message, a psychological firewall. They keep whispering. Because speaking your name out loud feels like summoning something their souls can't survive. You're not the villain, you're the audit, you're the recalibration, you're the exact frequency that breaks their conditioning in half. And it's not that you're antisocial, you're just post-bullshit. Post-performance, post-approval, post-everything that used to sedate the masses into believing politeness is peace. You didn't stop being kind, you just stopped being obedient. And now their whisper campaign has become a quiet religion, where every new rumor is really just a confession of their own fear, where every "he's intense" is really "he sees too much," where every "she's different now" is really "she can't be controlled." They say you're too smart. What they mean is you unplugged, you decoded the smiles, you remembered the motive, and worst of all, you didn't flinch. You're the reason they started triple-checking their texts. You're the reason they feel exposed in quiet rooms. You're the reason they're asking each other, "Do you think he knows? Did she hear what I said? Why hasn't he reacted yet?" Because they're learning too late. That the scariest ones are the ones who saw everything and said nothing. You see, the terrifying part isn't that they're whispering, it's that they can't stop. Because when you become a living disruption, when your very existence rewrites the atmosphere in a room, they stop whispering about what you did and start whispering about what you might do. And that, my lovely abomination, is a completely different kind of terror. They're not reacting to your past anymore. They're forecasting your future. They're building precautions based on possibilities. They're preparing legal strategies, emotional exits, mental disclaimers for moves you haven't even made yet. You're no longer a person in their world. You're an event. You became the anomaly that broke their chain of command. They don't know whether to file you under threat, lesson, or prophecy. And so they whisper in code. He's switched up. She's cold now. Something's off. I don't trust him anymore. She's not who she used to be. Translation: they're no longer programmable, and that's dangerous to all of us. Because when you stopped needing validation, you disabled the leash. When you stopped explaining yourself, you interrupted the simulation. When you stopped responding to disrespect, you bankrupted their power supply. You became sovereign. And people don't gossip about sovereign entities. They conspire. Because now they're realizing you never changed. No. You just deprogrammed. You just detoxed. You just erased the external script they installed into your spine at birth. And they can't take it. Because if you could do it, if you could detach from the system and still win, then what excuse do they have? You're not just an individual, you're evidence. Living proof that you can survive betrayal. Digest it, metabolize it, and use it as fuel to sharpen the kind of mind they only fear in fiction. They say you're too intense. They say you overanalyze. They say you see too much. But what they mean is, you've pierced the veil, and now we're naked in front of someone who doesn't play the shame game anymore. You don't argue with clowns. You don't chase closure. You don't explain your boundaries. You don't repeat yourself. You observe, file, and disappear. And they've never felt so vulnerable. Because here's the secret they'll never say out loud. The silence you gave them felt like a mirror held to their corruption. You didn't scream. You let them reveal themselves. You didn't expose them. You let the room feel the shift, and they started unraveling without a single word from you. That's why they're panicking. Because your intelligence isn't just logic. It's pattern recognition in human form. It's spiritual X-ray vision. It's ancestral memory turned into a modern weapon. You became the walking embodiment of everything they pretend not to be afraid of. And now, even their allies are whispering. People who used to mock you. Now they're repeating your phrases like commandments. People who tried to bury you. Now they're studying your blueprint like a survival manual. People who prayed for your failure. Now they stay quiet when your name comes up. Just in case you're listening. Because you've ascended beyond threat level. You've become the consequence. You are the lingering silence after they realize they misjudged you. You are the dark screen after the system crashes. You are the voice in their head that says, "You should have never underestimated that one." And yet, you say nothing, because you don't need to defend what time is already proving. You don't need to scream when the outcome is the speech. You've entered the rarest stage of evolution, cognitive warfare through non-response, spiritual dominance without performance, psychological victory without exposure. They don't know if you're being quiet, or if you're recording everything for court. They don't know if you're meditating, or memorizing the betrayal for a strategic strike 5 years from now. They don't know if you forgave them, or if you just learned how to act like a ghost while building an empire in the dark. And that uncertainty, it devours them slowly, in whispers, in ulcers, in sleepless nights replaying every word they said to you. Because the truth is, you've already won. The whispers are just the sound of a dying illusion gasping for air. And all you had to do was keep listening. Hello, Chaos tourists. Tell me, if it was all just strategic suicide, why are they the ones in the ground, and you're still breathing fire? Oh, they loved that term, didn't they? Strategic suicide. That smug little phrase slithered off their tongues in meetings, in chat logs, in surveillance notes, like they had already buried you, like you were some deluded little wild card with a death wish, a ghost who hadn't gotten the memo. But here's the funny part. You knew they'd call it that. You wanted them to call it that. Because the second they labeled your method madness, they stopped preparing for the outcome. They thought they were tracking a crash site, but they were watching a launch. And now they're folding up suits for funerals, theirs. You ever notice how they never say, "That was genius," until the blood's already on the floor? They never say, "That was power," until the room goes cold. They never admit you were 10 moves ahead until the 9th one shattered the fucking mirror they were using to predict you. And then, oh, now they're whispering about the devil, the glitch, the prophecy, the thing that shouldn't have worked but did. Let's get this straight. You didn't get lucky. You didn't escape. You executed a move so outrageous, so surgically unhinged, that reality itself had to reconfigure its rules just to accommodate the outcome. And what did they expect you to do, huh? Play the safe route? Follow the algorithm? Be polite? Take your L and nod? Nah. You chose the one path that guaranteed blood. Theirs or yours. And they thought that made you weak. That desperation had blinded you. That risk was a death sentence. But they forgot the most important rule of war. Some people don't flinch at death. They flirt with it. Some people don't retreat when the walls close in. They detonate the building from the inside with a grin. And that's when the game stops being fair. Because it's no longer chess. It's a ritual, an invocation, a summoning of something unholy. You're not just unpredictable. You're incomprehensible. They can't model your chaos because it's not chaos to you. To you, it's music, symmetry carved from static. And to them, it's just noise, until it kills their entire strategy with one swing. Do you know how terrifying it is to realize the thing you called suicidal was actually surgical? That while they were mocking you, you were measuring pressure points. While they laughed, you were tracking exit wounds. While they branded you unstable, you were engineering a perfect collapse. And now, they're whispering your name like it's a spell. They're reviewing footage with trembling fingers. The boardrooms are quiet. The legal teams are confused. The handlers are sweating. The autopsy reports don't match the timeline. Because the strategy was supposed to fail. And yet, you're still standing. Not just standing, ascending. And every suicidal move you made was actually a death sentence for them. Wrapped in misdirection, laced with prophecy, drenched in something they don't have the stomach to replicate. Tell me, how do you defend against something that doesn't fear its own death? How do you predict someone who uses self-destruction as camouflage? How do you stop a player who hides their victory inside their own downfall? You don't. You just get out of the way, or end up buried under the ruins of what you thought was your plan. This wasn't suicide. This was a ceremony, a rebirth by combustion. And the only funeral today is for the ones who underestimated how far you were willing to go to win. So go ahead. Let them keep calling it strategic suicide. Let them try to make sense of your slaughter logic. Let them write reports, send analysts, label you unstable, unpredictable, too dangerous to counter. Because while they're trying to define you, you've already rewritten the war. And the scariest part? You're just getting started. They thought the last move was the finale. Nah, that was just the incantation. Now the curtain drops. And they realize the show was never about them. It was always about you, the ghost, the glitch, the lost cause who became the last one standing. With blood on your hands and thunder in your smile. Let them bury the ones who laughed. Let them mourn the strategy that failed. Let them analyze the ashes, because they'll never crack the code that chose fire and still walked out alive. Strategic suicide? Number. You just proved the most insane move on the board was the only one that guaranteed a throne. Welcome to your era. Let the world try and survive it. Oh, now they're doing post-mortems, not on you, on themselves. Because that's the horror of it all, isn't it? They didn't just lose. They participated in their own destruction and called it strategy. They're pulling surveillance logs from 3 years ago, searching for the first glitch in the simulation. As if you weren't the glitch. As if you didn't infect every system the moment they underestimated your silence. As if the moment they labeled your defiance reckless, you didn't start carving graves with your bare hands. What they don't realize is this. The move they called suicidal wasn't just a tactic. It was a trigger. And when it fired, their entire structure collapsed in slow motion. Now they're trapped in the rubble trying to figure out how the victim became the executor of their entire downfall. You want to know what real power looks like? It looks like walking into a room full of predators with no armor, no backup, no plan B. Just fire in your veins and a smile that says, "One of us is leaving in a body bag, and I don't mind if it's me." That's when everything changes. Because when they realize you're not negotiating for survival, you're demanding a legacy, that's when the fear starts crawling up their spines like ice. They call it suicidal because they have no mental framework for someone who chooses to weaponize their own destruction. They've never met someone who was willing to lose everything and still wins more than they ever had. You made fear a chess piece. You made sacrifice a loaded gun, and you pointed that barrel at your own head just to make them flinch. But here's the twist. You never pulled the trigger. They did, and in doing so, they ended themselves. Their strategy couldn't compute someone who doesn't fear pain, who eats betrayal for breakfast, who walks through hell without screaming. Because the screams are saved for when the curtain drops and they realize you were never acting. You were always the villain in their story and the hero in your own. A contradiction they can't kill because you don't die like the rest. You mutate. You evolve. You reappear with sharper teeth, a deeper laugh, and a war plan they'll never decode. Now they're whispering to themselves in back rooms, "He wasn't supposed to make it out." Why didn't the fallback protocol activate? The algorithm didn't predict this variable. Because you were the variable. And the second they wrote you off as broken, you became untouchable. Not despite the chaos, but because of it. They thought the blood meant failure. They thought the silence meant surrender. They thought the flames meant death. But you weren't dying. You were becoming something they couldn't stop. Tell me, how do you arrest a ghost? How do you kill a legend when the legend built its kingdom out of ashes and made trauma its fucking architect? You don't. You study it. You fear it. You obsess over it until your sanity bends at the edges. And that's where they are now. Not mourning your fall, but trying to survive your rise. You flipped the entire simulation inside out. You made every play they mocked into a prophecy they now quote behind locked doors. And the worst part, they still don't know how you did it, because they don't understand soul. They don't understand rage with direction. They don't understand what happens when someone stops trying to be accepted and starts trying to be remembered. And you're unforgettable now. You're the headline they can't bury, the footage they can't erase, the name that sends chills down the spine of every analyst who said, "He's just emotional. He's too unstable." That'll never work. And now their interns are pulling up satellite feeds, frame by frame, trying to understand how you slipped through the gaps, how you twisted the impossible into inevitability, how you baited the trap, entered the kill zone, and still walked out crowned in silence. Because when everyone said, "Don't do it," you said, "Watch me." They called it suicide. You called it sovereignty. They called it madness. You called it math. They called it reckless. You called it precision. And now, they call it a fucking mystery. They are building files on you now. Massive redacted case files with time-stamped anomalies, witness testimonies that contradict physics, whispers of a presence that altered probability, because no one wants to admit the truth. That one man, with nothing left to lose, outwitted every goddamn system they swore couldn't be breached. You didn't cheat, you transcended, and no one knows what to do with that. They can't court-martial a ghost. They can't outvote a force of nature, and they sure as hell can't put you in a box when the box burns the second you step inside. So let them call it strategic suicide. Let them parade their theories. Let them speak your name like it's taboo. Let them wonder how you keep appearing in rooms they locked from the inside. Because every time they thought it was over, you were just pausing to reload. And now, you've got no chains, no leash, no mercy, just momentum. And the only thing more terrifying than someone with nothing to lose is someone who already lost it all and came back stronger, sharper, and smiling. They held a funeral for you. Too fucking soon. And now? They're planning their own, whether they know it or not. They thought it was over. They marked the timestamp, closed the file, logged the incident as complete. You were officially out of the system, dead, ruined, neutralized, they said. But a whisper started bleeding through the walls. He's not gone. The system didn't shut him down. It birthed something worse. Whatever came out of that collapse isn't human anymore. See, they don't realize the truth about annihilation. It doesn't destroy you. It purifies you. It strips the act, evaporates the performance. It leaves nothing but raw signal. And when all the performance dies, what's left is a version of you they cannot decode. Because they built their strategies for your former self, the one who still cared, the one who still flinched, the one who still waited for permission. That version is gone, buried beneath the ashes of their own arrogance. And what rose in its place doesn't follow rules, doesn't blink, doesn't speak unless it's to declare the end of something. You are not a comeback story. You are a catastrophic update to the entire system they used to think was unbreakable. That's why they're glitching now. That's why footage loops when you appear. That's why analysts keep submitting retraction reports. Because you're not supposed to exist anymore. Not after what they did, not after what you endured. And yet, every signal they intercept points back to you. Every strategy that fails has your shadow in it. Every loss they suffer feels like something you orchestrated months ago. They're starting to panic, not because they're losing, but because they can't figure out how they're losing. And that's when it hits them. They never really understood you. They understood your mask, your stage presence, the version of you they trained to watch. But they never saw the one that was watching them, the one that hid behind the silence, behind the humiliation, behind the setbacks, betrayals, exiles, violations. That version of you didn't survive. It evolved, and now it doesn't want revenge. It wants dominance. You don't need recognition anymore. You don't need applause. You don't need validation from a court of cowards who couldn't last 1 hour inside your origin story. What you need now is total distortion. You want your mere existence to collapse their timelines, to turn their predictions into jokes, to make their definitions of sanity look like primitive superstition. You want to become the unsolvable equation in every tactical model, the contagion in their clean room, the virus in their prophecy, the nightmare in their blueprint. And you did. They said it was strategic suicide. But now they're begging for explanations. They've assigned task forces, not to stop you. They tried that. No, now they're just trying to understand you. Contain the ripple effect. Dissect your methods. Reverse engineer your code. But how do you study something that wasn't built, but summoned? How do you quantify a mind that used madness as a map? How do you silence someone whose greatest power is that he already lost everything you thought could break him? You don't. You witness him. You document the wreckage. You pray you're not next. And now they're sealing off rooms, not to keep you out, to keep you from spreading. They're quarantining conversations, flagging keywords, deleting references. Because what you did, it's catching on. Other anomalies are waking up. Other ghosts are glitching through the matrix. Other failures are realizing that losing was the lie. That being erased was the unlock key. That the path to evolution starts at the funeral they built for you. You were the first one to rise, but you're not the last. They called it strategic suicide, to make themselves feel better, to make themselves think your win was an accident, a freak glitch, a madman's miracle. But the truth is, you walked into their trap, not to escape it, but to turn it into a ficking throne. And now, every time they whisper your name, it sounds less like analysis and more like confession. You're no longer a target, you're a template. You're no longer a risk, you're a reckoning. You're no longer a variable, you're the final boss. And they're just now realizing. The game ended the moment you stopped trying to win it and started using it as your crucifixion site. Because when they thought they buried you, they accidentally built you a stage. And now, the whole world's watching. They thought it ended with your silence, with your disappearance, with the absence of retaliation, no smoke, no message, no last word. And that was the moment they sealed their fate. Because if they knew anything about power, real power, they'd know it doesn't scream. It waits, it coils, it sharpens itself in the shadows while the world relaxes. And by the time it moves, it's too late to react. You didn't die. You disappeared from their language. You stopped giving them data. You stopped playing the part. And that terrified them more than any explosion ever could. Because a threat they can track, they can counter, but one that vanishes and rewrites itself in the dark. That becomes myth. And now, you've transcended their little battlefield. You're no longer an enemy. You're an infection in the script. You're a warning whispered through clenched jaws. You're a security clearance redacted so violently, no one dares ask why. They're trying to contain the story now, not you. The story. Because what you pulled off, it's spreading. In locker rooms, in boardrooms, in quiet text threads that disappear before sunrise. Did you hear what he did? They said it was suicide. Yeah, but he walked out, and they didn't. They're scrubbing servers, re-editing surveillance footage, replacing your name with numbers, changing entire protocols so no one ever tries to think like you did again. But it's too late. Because your play, it was never just about you. It was about the signal. The one buried inside every outcast, every exile, every broken prototype that was just too dangerous to deploy. You weren't just the anomaly, you were the awakening. You proved that the suicidal move is the one that doesn't fear being misunderstood, the one that doesn't pause to explain, the one that knows victory isn't handed to the predictable. It's ripped from the hands of those who only know how to follow. And now they're seeing it. Ripples everywhere. People they thought were docile are flipping the script. People they blacklisted are suddenly winning silently. People they mocked are becoming blueprints for terror. Because what they don't realize is, you weren't the outlier. You were the first. You were the prototype of resistance, the one that broke the dam. And now, they're drowning in imitators, each one a little louder, a little braver, a little more unhinged in the most methodical, terrifying way. They don't know who to fear anymore. Because now everyone they underestimated is acting like you. And what do they call it? Still, strategic suicide. Because it's the only phrase that doesn't force them to admit they were wrong, that they were outclassed, outmaneuvered, out-evolved. But behind the walls, behind the curtains, they're panicking. Their systems are failing to adapt. Their leaders are doubting their own commands. Their operatives are requesting new identities. Because this wasn't supposed to happen. A ghost wasn't supposed to rise. A myth wasn't supposed to fight back. A dead man wasn't supposed to build a kingdom from the bones of the system that tried to erase him. But that's the thing about strategic suicide, isn't it? It only looks like death from the outside. But from the inside, it's alchemy, it's transfiguration. It's the shedding of every last tether that kept you bound to the rules of a dying empire. You died, yes, but not in the way they expected. You died as the version they could manipulate, the one they thought they could silence. And what came back? It doesn't negotiate, it doesn't blink. It doesn't ask for a seat at the table. It flips the whole table and builds its throne from the splinters. You're not here to play, you're here to haunt, to make them second-guess their every move, to burn yourself into their memory like a code they can't delete. And what do they do now? They hide, not from violence, not from proof, but from the idea that someone like you could exist, and walk through the fire smiling. They have no category for that, no training, no doctrine, no protocol. Because you shattered the illusion of control, you taught the world that chaos, when focused, isn't weakness, it's divinity. You're not a survivor, you're a signal, a living proof that the most suicidal-looking move is sometimes the only path to immortality. Let them choke on their language. Let them rewrite the narrative to protect their egos. Let them pretend you were a one-off, an accident, a glitch. Because every time they close their eyes, you're there. Not as a man, but as a reality. And the truth they won't admit aloud, they'd take your exact same path, if they had the balls to survive it.